Hey everyone! If you're just starting out in Pathogenic or have tried a few times and died as quickly as I did, this video is for you. I confess that when I first started playing Pathogenic, I thought I'd just shoot, evolve, and win, but the game showed me I knew almost nothing. I spent a good amount of time learning the hard way, dying, resetting, testing, and what I'm about to pass on to you is what truly improved my gameplay. These are 10 advanced tips I genuinely wish I had known before losing hours of progress, and if you want to stop struggling and start dominating the game, stay with me. I'm Matthew, and the video is about to start. In the beginning, I treated Pathogenic like any other roguelike. I thought it was enough to aim, shoot, and dodge with the right timing. Then that giant macrophage showed up, I tried to run away in a straight line, and the death was instantaneous. It took about 3 frustrated runs until I realized that the protagonist's gelatinous texture isn't just for show. It is, in fact, the most powerful tool the game gives you. While I fought against the character's physicality, the game was laughing at me. The soft body physics here isn't a visual whim. When you collide with something, the momentum truly reverberates. If you hit an enemy head-on, it isn't just I take damage and recoil. The game calculates mass, angle, and speed. Your body deforms and pushes the surrounding environment, which means a well-placed collision can throw a creature straight into a trap or simply open an escape route that didn't exist before. The devs didn't add this mechanic for nothing, and the reviews praising it are absolutely right. It is the heart of combat. In practice, when a macrophage advances, retreating doesn't work. What works is a lateral boost, letting your body's wobble absorb the impact, and using the ricochet to gain distance. It looks clumsy, but that very clumsiness is what saves you. I started using walls to do something like a slingshot. I hit, I deform, I shoot to the other side. Enemies I previously avoided at all costs, I now push into hazard zones or use as a cellular shield without mercy. The physics makes the chaotic predictable, just on your own terms. What breaks me is seeing people completely ignoring this. They keep trying to play Dark Souls with a gelatinous body, thinking that rigidity and pinpoint precision will win. Pathogenic doesn't reward that. The real skill ceiling lies in embracing the chaos, in stopping the fight against the inconsistency of the soft body and starting to surf on it. When you understand that you aren't prey, but an unpredictable projectile, the game turns the tables. And believe me, the difference between dying in the third biome and arriving at the end alive is often just that click. Honestly, if there's one thing I took a long time to truly understand, it's that raw damage alone is the worst trap in the game. In the beginning, I fell for it like everyone else. I saw an Organelle with a high number, grabbed it without thinking, and thought I was building a strong build. Spoiler, I wasn't. What really makes a difference is when you stop hunting isolated stats and start thinking about how the pieces talk to each other. The core of Pathogenic is exactly this: connecting secretors, infusers, mitochondria, and flagella or spikes intelligently. You don't just want more damage, you want chains. A secretor that applies an effect, an infuser that amplifies it, a mitochondrion that charges energy, and a flagellum or spike that triggers the reaction at the right moment. When this clicks, you create lightning propagation, chain explosions, overcharge, that kind of thing that makes the whole run change its rhythm. I feel the difference myself. A build that just stacks raw damage, reaches the mid-game, and hits a wall. A build that prioritizes Organelle synergy feels like the game opens up space for you. Enemies start melting in ways that don't even seem fair, and you get that satisfying feeling of, wow, I built this on purpose. It wasn't luck, it was understanding. So, the next time an enticing Organelle with a high number appears on screen, stop for a second. Ask yourself, does this connect with what I already have? If the answer is no, let it pass. In Pathogenic, the mediocre build is the one that only hits hard. The good build is the one that makes the entire system work together. At first, I tried to fight against the setting all the time, moving non-stop to where I wanted to go. But in many cases, the organ itself is already telling you which is the best path to follow. In the lungs, for example, the airflow can push you into dangerous positions or help you cross an area without spending as much energy if you know how to follow the movement. Instead of insisting on pushing against the current, I try to observe for a few seconds how that flow works, find an opening, and move along with it. It seems simple, but it avoids a lot of silly damage and makes movement much more efficient. In the heart, the situation changes because the environment has that pulsating rhythm and the bloodstream turns the space into something much less predictable. Here, I prefer not to get stuck in corners and always try to leave an escape route available. If you overcommit to an enemy and the pulse throws you to the wrong side, you can end up surrounded before you even understand what happened. And this applies to all biomes. Stomach acid, heart currents, and lung flow aren't just obstacles placed there to bother you. They are part of the fight. When you start using the environment to your advantage, spending less energy to move around and choosing where to fight, Pathogenic stops feeling like a chaotic mess and starts feeling like a much more strategic game. I used to be one of those who thought meta progression was just sugarcoating, an optional thing for those who wanted to grind. In the first few runs, I simply ignored the leftover Plasmid fragments, wanting to win based on pure skill and reflex. Result? I stayed stuck in the same Organ, dying to the same horde, and thinking the game had an artificial difficulty spike. Spoiler, the problem wasn't the game, it was me being stubborn. The click happened when I stopped to read and finally understand what the Plasmid tree offers. Each pathogen has its own specific tree, and unlocking nodes there doesn't just give you higher numbers. It gives you passive bonuses that completely change how you interact with the world. Cellular integrity regeneration, resistance to environmental toxins, maybe an extra ability slot you didn't even know you needed until you were desperate in the 4th biome. This isn't a luxury, it's the foundation of your endgame. The harsh reality hits when you reach the harder organs. Without invested plasmids, you are literally an underarmed soft body trying to swim against the bloodstream. The difference between having that passive regeneration or not is the difference between clearing a room and becoming organic substrate. With the right meta progression, suddenly you can take that extra hit, survive a trap that would be fatal, and then your mechanical skill finally has room to shine. The game balances difficulty by expecting you to be evolved. So do me a favor, between runs, stop rushing to the next attempt. Collect properly, open the tree, plan what to unlock. This isn't cheating or playing like a coward, it's understanding that Pathogenic was built around this cycle. Ignoring the Plasmid tree is choosing to play in suicide mode with 0 extra rewards. Do your homework, come back stronger, and then you'll see that the game wasn't impossible. It just required you to evolve outside the run as well. If there's one thing I learned the hard way, it's that being married to a single attack style is asking for trouble. At first, I loved pure builds. Only melee with tentacles and spikes, or only ranged shots. It seemed clean, organized, efficient, until a mixed horde of macrophages, T-cells, and rivals appeared at the same time. Then the perfect build turned into a nightmare. Mixed hordes punish pure builds without mercy. If you only have short-range, long-range enemies take you apart while you try to close the distance. If you only shoot from afar, the macrophages and rivals that stick to you swallow you up, because you have no close-range answer. The game doesn't warn you about this with a tutorial. It just puts you in a crowded room and expects you to figure it out on your own. What actually works for me is the hybrid combination. Short-range tentacles or spikes along with rapid shots. It doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be versatile. When something gets close, you have an immediate response. When the room fills with long-range enemies, you aren't left standing still with nothing to do. This consistency saves runs. It's not about having the highest damage possible, it's about having no blind spots. So next time you are setting up your build and think, I'll focus only on this here, stop for a second. Ask if this choice can handle a mixed horde. If the answer is, maybe not, make room for the other style. In Pathogenic, the build that survives isn't the purest one. It's the one that adapts. I know that when we start a roguelike like Pathogenic, the urge is to go straight into combat. But one thing that changed my game a lot was stopping for a bit to read the Codex. It's not just a supplement, it's basically a weapon the game itself gives you, and which, if ignored, ends up making you die out of sheer ignorance. At the beginning, I tried to guess what the attacks were for each immune cell and each rival parasite like protozoa and tapeworms. Result, I died repeatedly to the same patterns exactly because I didn't know what to expect. After I started consulting the Codex and memorizing the attack types and weak points of each enemy, I started making better decisions in real time. The Codex also helps you understand which organelles and mutations work better against certain mechanics. Knowing that a cell has a specific type of defense or an attack that punishes a certain playstyle makes you choose different upgrades. Instead of putting together a build based on gut feeling, I started using this knowledge to gain a real advantage in battles. And the coolest part is that, over time, you incorporate this information without realizing it. What at first is reading and trying to memorize becomes natural. You see the enemy and you already know if you should focus, retreat, or change tactics. In Pathogenic, having this knowledge is what separates those who just survive from those who really start to master the game. I've already reached the end of an organ feeling like a boss, with a build all geared toward raw damage, thinking I was going to melt the boss in seconds. Then the guy enters, launches a projectile pattern so dense that the screen looks like a deadly confetti party, and I discover that having high damage means nothing when you can't stay alive long enough to use it. I died with the boss at half health, and that was when I understood. The game doesn't only reward those who hit hardest, but those who survive long enough to keep hitting. The bosses at the end of each organ are exactly where the word bullet hell makes real sense. It's not an exaggeration from the reviews, it's reality. The The screen fills with threats, the pattern demands movement reading and constant positioning, and if you don't have mobility options beyond the basics, your life becomes a joke. I started on purpose, setting aside build spaces for organelles that don't do damage, but that keep me breathing, an extra flagellum dash, a membrane shield that absorbs a stupid hit, or that organelle that gives a speed burst when integrity drops. This completely changes the fight. What I do now is simple. Throughout the entire organ, I'm building a secondary survival build in parallel. If I find a utility organelle that seems useless against common enemies, I keep it. I don't swap it for a tempting damage upgrade. When I reach the boss, I make the switch, or at least I have the option up my sleeve. And it doesn't need to be much. Sometimes a single extra dash is the difference between crossing an impossible pattern and finding a counterattack window. The density of the projectiles is designed to punish those who enter unprepared. If you are getting stuck on bosses and think the problem is a lack of damage, test one thing. Go in with less fire and more mobility. You will realize that the boss doesn't have infinite health, but you need time to apply the damage you already have. Keeping dash and shield organelles isn't being scared, it's being smart. The game gives you tools for this, and ignoring this layer of utility is choosing to suffer for nothing. Adapt your build to the confrontation, and you will see that the so-called impossible boss was just a preparation test. Honestly, if there's one habit that separates mediocre runs from runs that are actually worthwhile and pathogenic, it's curiosity. I myself, in the beginning, always ran through the main path of the biomes, focused only on surviving and getting to the end. It seemed efficient, until I realized that the game hides a bunch of stuff for those who stop, look to the side, and investigate for real. It's not just about checking an extra corner. There are secret rooms, sometimes hidden behind walls you need to break. There are alternative routes in the middle of the levels. There are advanced challenges that don't appear if you just follow the flow. And there's even a secret pathogen, locked behind a special condition, that many people don't even discover because they never leave the obvious path. The game doesn't push you to do this. It rewards those who pay attention. I feel the difference every time I decide to explore for real. The runs become richer, the builds open up possibilities I didn't even know existed, and suddenly you understand that Pathogenic isn't just about killing what's in front of you. It's about what's hidden in the corner of the room, behind that suspicious wall, on that route that seems wrong on the map. People who only run through the main path are playing half the game. So next time you are in the middle of a biome and feel like just moving forward, stop for a second, break that wall, test that side route, explore beyond the main path. In Pathogenic, the best prizes aren't in the middle of the road. They are for those who have the courage to leave it. One thing I noticed is that it's very easy to get attached to the first pathogen we feel we play well with. But the more I tested the others, the more I saw that each one demands a completely different rhythm and logic. If you only insist on one, you end up limited not only in the game's possibilities, but also in your own understanding of it. Each of the 7 pathogens, like Amoeba, Nanobot, Bacterium, Helminth, and the others, has its own mechanics and plasmid trees that totally change how you must approach each fight. What works for one doesn't work for another, and that's what makes the game so interesting. When you switch pathogens, you are forced to rethink your approach completely. I, for example, started out focused on a more direct and aggressive style, but when I tried others, I realized that some demand patience, positioning, and even a type of waiting game I wasn't used to. This made me better understand the enemy and upgrade system as a whole because each pathogen reveals a different layer of the game. True mastery in Pathogenic doesn't come from dominating a single pathogen, but from understanding how each one fits into different situations and styles. Alternating between them isn't just curiosity, it's the best way to discover which one adapts to your rhythm and, at the same time, expand your repertoire to handle any challenge the game throws at you. Amoeba starts weak, with few slots, and if you try to put together a clean build without evolving, the game crushes you. In the demo, you could get away with playing a pure Amoeba and laughing at the idea. In the full game, that's a meme that sends you back to the menu pretty quickly. What really works is prioritizing slots and evolution early. Right off the bat, focus on gaining extra slots and internal organelles. It doesn't matter if the build doesn't have an identity yet, what matters is space. Without slots, you have no options. Without options, you don't survive. The amoeba needs to grow before it shines, and this growth starts in the first biomes, not in the mid-game when it's already too late. I feel the difference every time I do this right. When I evolve slots first, the run opens up. Suddenly there is room left to fit the organelles that really matter, and only then comes the specialization. When I try to specialize too early, with few slots, the build hits a wall, becomes fragile, and any mixed horde finishes me off. Order matters. Space first, identity later. So, if you picked the amoeba and are tempted to put together something stylish and minimalist right at the beginning, Hold the excitement. Evolve slots first, then specialize. In Pathogenic, the amoeba that survives isn't the prettiest at the start. It's the one that has grown enough to become dangerous.